I spent 9 years making music until I finally understood how to mix. And in this video, I'm going to share 5 game-changing tips that will help you to get clean, balanced, and professional sounding mixes guaranteed no matter what genre you are making. I used these exact tips to remake my old track, and it went from sounding like this I wouldn't waste your time if I didn't know that this stuff actually works. I'm using the same techniques in every single track that I produce, and I've taught the same framework to dozens of students in my music production coaching program. So in this video, I want to save years of your time so you don't have to go through the same mistakes as I did. So first we have to understand why so many producers are struggling with mixing. And the funny truth is, it's not the mixing that you're struggling with, it is production. In this video, we're gonna go through 5 most important decisions that you can make early in your production process so that you can get good sounding mixes at the end. Let's talk about the most important thing that will determine the quality of your mixes, which is arrangement and composition. If you have bad arrangement, there's nothing you can do. There's no magic technique that will save your mix. So you have to get it right, and the mixing process will be effortless. I always think of my tracks as a box. There's a limited amount of space that you can use, so we have to be very conscious of what we are putting into that box, because after a certain point, if you have too much, it will be impossible to mix the track. So if you can have this less is more approach, it will be much easier for you to finish tracks and to mix it. And I'm gonna show you 2 examples of how we can fix it and make sure that we only have sounds that actually are giving value and making sense for our mix. This is the previous version of the track, and I want to walk you through the mistakes that I did. We start with the kick and the bass, which sounds really good on its own with the drums. But at the same time, we have so many layers and they are fighting with each other. I'm gonna start enabling them one by one, and you're gonna hear the problems that will arise. So the first one is still okay. Add a little bit of delay and it's gonna be cool. This is cool. But once I start adding the second layer, you can also see that it is basically fighting. If you look at the notes here, it's overlapping a little bit, which is not good. And you're gonna hear this right away. Although this layer is cool, it's not really giving any value to the mix. So only if I had it in solo, yes, maybe it could work. But then check it out, I have even more. So in 2023, I wasn't even thinking about that stuff. And this all is going to conflict with the bass line. It's going to overlap so much more, right? Let's keep adding those layers and you're going to see it's a mess. It's a mess and it just doesn't sound good. So this is the mistake that I was doing, and this is the mistake that a lot of music producers are doing. So you want to simplify, and let's have a look at the new version of the track so you can understand my thinking process and why simple stuff is always better. Okay, let's now have a look at the second example of the same track. It's way more minimal, it's way more club friendly. Yes, it may seem a bit too minimal, but I want you guys to understand that simplicity is what's important, and it is what is going to make it easy for you to mix and finish tracks. Check it out. So simple, but so good. So in this track, we only have this lead sound and this lead sound playing at the same time. I play a solo and those sounds are different, so this is why they sound good. Right? And then the second one is the cello. I love cello as an instrument. I have it in every single track. Has little accents, so right, this is really cool. I also had another lead sound which was originally playing like here, but I decided to not to use it because it's not giving any value to the mix. It's just conflicting. It's cool to have it on its own, right? I would maybe have a part in the track where I just have this lead sound. But it's not making sense to play it with this lead sound because they are fighting. They occupy the same frequencies. Right? This is not making any sense. So once again, minimalism is the key, and the biggest thing which I can totally understand is our human brain can't comprehend that music can be simple, and this will sound good in the club. So allow yourself to have super minimal tracks and you will see how much easier it is to mix and finish your music. So the next question is, how do I make sure that those few sounds that I'm using in my minimal arrangement sound good? So let's talk about that in the next chapter. The secret to clean and punchy mixes is basically the envelope, the shape of your sounds, and you really want to spend a lot of time tweaking that, and it is actually very easy. So a clean and punchy mix has clean and punchy envelope, and most of the times what you get wrong is just the shape of the envelope, which I noticed a lot of producers just make it way too long and way too sustained. So let's have a look how we can fix that. So in the first example, the envelope was long and sustained, and not that it's a problem because sometimes you should actually use this shape, it just didn't work well with the punchy vibe of the bass line and the punchy vibe of the track. And on the other hand, in the second example, I spent some time and found the perfect envelope, the perfect shape that actually works with the vibe of my bass and with the vibe of my track. Okay, so let's put this into practice. Here we have the bass from the track, and let's start with the envelope 1. So envelope 1 is the main volume envelope, which controls the volume and the shape of the sound. So listen carefully as I change the envelope and see how that affects the groove that we have with the kick. And then we can use the envelope 2 to have multiple shapes in one sound, which allows us to have more interesting dynamics. And overall, like, the sound will be a little bit more interesting. And we can also shape this. Volume balance is the foundation for a clean and professional mix. It's about prioritizing instruments based on their role in the mix. Think of your mix as directing a play or a movie scene. You have lead actors, supporting actors, and background characters. So decide what are the main sounds and give them the most space in the mix. One of the great examples that I used earlier in my videos is Mona Lisa. You can clearly see the foreground, the main theme, the middle ground, and the background. So if you are more of a visual person, try imagining your mix and your sounds visually. It might help you a lot with getting that right balance. So the problem is, many music producers don't understand how to balance instruments, ending up with a muddy and dead mix. It happens because the headphones and the speakers you are using are not objective. Yes, it can sound good in the studio, but you can't rely only on that, only on your one system. A good mix translates well on all systems. So let me walk you through the step-by-step process how I balance my mixes. So let's start with the kick and the bass. Still around -12. Now let's do the bass. And then I'm gonna start turning on and off the studio emulation software just to see how it sounds. Yeah, pretty nice, pretty clean. So in this case, the kick is gonna be a little bit louder, but we can always fine tune that. It should just sit in the mix, right? It shouldn't be too loud, shouldn't be too quiet. And also make sure that you turn off the reverbs and the delays because it's not gonna help you. Mix the dry signal. Then we can do the next layer of the lead sound. Make sure that it sits well. You can hear how nicely the sounds sit in the mix. Now let's do the third lead sound, and that's going to be it for the melodic sounds. Okay, once you did the lead sounds, now you want to do the rhythm section, so the drums. I think the lead sounds could be a little bit louder and a little bit more upfront. And now we can do the final test and make the track a little bit louder, just so you understand if the balance is correct. Because once you use the limiter on the master, you will expose the mistakes that you could have done earlier in the balancing stage. Okay, next tip. Better mixes with better use of spatial effects. So picture this, you make a good sound, the shape is clean and punchy, but then you ruin it with the reverb and delay. You put too much delay and reverb and it washes out the sound and makes the whole mix feel muddy. And think of presets. A lot of presets come this way, but this is because they should sound good on their own. So we are judging if this sound is good or bad. So here's the thinking process before you use a preset in your track. So do I like the timbre, the sonic characteristics of the sound? And does it sound good with everything else in the mix? So when you use reverb and delays, you want to check those two boxes. You can't just say the reverb sounds great on its own, but then you add it to the mix and it's drowning out the surrounding sound and just makes the whole thing muddy. I'm gonna teach you how I always get clean sounding reverb in my mixes, and one of the first steps is just to stop using built-in reverbs and delays in the synth. Let me give you this one example, just check it out. It's way too much, it's muddy, the reverb is way too long. A lot of presets come with these settings and you cannot just use them mindlessly like this. So the first step is to turn off the reverb and the delay and learn how to listen to a dry sound. Because if a dry sound sounds good, then applying the right reverb setting is going to be very easy. Okay, now I'm going to teach you how to set up the right reverb for your track. So I'm going to load my reverb onto my return channel. Let's call it whole. Whole is the longest reverb. So we're going to put it here. You want to make sure that the mix is 100% and we are going to start with something like medium value. And I can give you a guideline, sort of a rule and something that I noticed. So for the type of music that I make, which is like 120 to 130, the maximum length for the whole, not like super long, like sound design, spacious kind of reverb, is like 3 seconds. So your reverb, the longest one, is usually going to be in between like 2 and like 3 seconds max. So we can start with this. A bit too short. So I think it's going to be like 2.5 seconds, which is actually pretty cool. And then we adjust the amount, as you can see here. Right, and now we can test everything in one take and see if the reverb is actually making sense, right? So we can send the rest of the instruments and to see how that sounds together. Actually pretty cool, but you don't want to send all the instruments to one reverb. You want to have some sort of separation. So you can use the same approach to create a small reverb, medium reverb, and the long reverb for your track. So let's talk about the last step for today, sound selection. So the key to good sound selection is stacking sounds with different timbral characteristics, because if you stack similar sounds, they're gonna mask each other and it will be impossible to get a clean and balanced mix. So let me give you 2 examples. Let's have a look at the track that we had in the beginning of the video. So I'm gonna start with the first lead sound. So on its own, it's actually sounding really nice, really full and cool. We also have the second lead sound, which has similar timbral characteristics. So once we start adding those 2 similar sounds, they're gonna start canceling and masking each other, which is not cool. And then we can even add the third sound, which is again very similar. So those 2, the green one and the white one, are sort of okay, but I would still pick something different. Once we do those 3 layers, then it's gonna be a mess. This is not good, so avoid. It just sounds cleaner if we go with this and this lead sound. Right, and once we play all together, again, it's gonna be a mess. And now let's have a look at this second really good example. So we start with the first lead sound, which is a synth lead sound, and it sounds like this. Very simple saw kind of synth sound, and we start with the second one. So the second sound is actually an acoustic, like ethnic Chinese instrument. And once we layer those 2, it sounds amazing because the sounds are different. And this is the third bass lead sound that adds punch and depth to the track. And because those sounds are different, they create this complex lead sounds and complement each other. So check it out in the mix. And here, every sound is important because even if I take one layer out, it's a little bit too empty. And now let's talk about better stereo placement and better stereo separation of your instruments. So to be honest, I wouldn't even stress too much about that, because if you have good sound selection, then you properly use delays and reverbs. Even if you have all your lead sounds in the middle, it will still sound good. But usually this is the approach that I have. So I would put all my lead sounds in the middle, and then if I have some filler sounds, if I have some additional sounds, that could go to the left and to the right. So this is an example of a dry track, no reverb, no delay. We're just gonna keep the echo on the flute, and you will hear that, yeah, it's actually pretty okay. Okay, so now we're gonna do some magic, and we're just gonna do very basic panning with those three sounds so you can see how big of a difference we can have here. Just a couple of small tweaks here, but so much better in terms of stereo separation and stereo placement. One quick tip about the panning is I usually select split stereo pan mode, because if you use the regular one, it basically what it does, it just changes the loudness of the right and the left channel. I'm not like expert in like what it actually does, but trust me, it just sounds better if you do like split stereo, so you separately pan left and right channel. Yo, this is going to be a little Easter egg for those of you guys, G's, real G's, who watched till the end. So I want to say thank you. Let me know what you think of this style of video, if you want me to do like more edited ones, because to be honest, like I spent like 10 hours and it's like 1 a.m. But I want to post this fucking video because I spend so much time on those 2 days. I have to go like to sleep in just like 40 minutes, but I want to get this out. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. And also, if you need help with your music, if you want to work with me one-on-one on leveling up your music production skills, if you want to start releasing music on labels, if you want to grow on social media as an artist, the link is going to be in the comments below. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you very, very soon with the next video on my channel. Ciao.